So, Adam, I've got a question for you to start us off today. What would you say is one of the most underrated parts of a city?
Well, I know from our earlier discussion, you're not talking about a neighborhood per se, but something a bit more fundamental. So it would probably be something that we don't usually see or that we don't notice. Something like infrastructure, roads, something like that.
Yeah, close, but I'm thinking about something else. Imagine something that's out of sight, but not exactly out of mind, especially when it stops working.
I'll say something like the water system, toilets.
Getting warmer? Let's say it's something that keeps the city flowing.
Well, then it would have to be something like the sewers that are running underneath all of our buildings.
Bingo. On today's episode, we're plunging deep into Toronto's underground story, the tale of our city's sewers. It's a story that's all about overcoming the gritty, grimy obstacles of urban growth. Think of it as the backbone of the city, even if sometimes it feels like we'd rather not talk about it.
I guess you could say it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. Just as a warning for all of our listeners, please expect all manner of puns of this nature. If you don't enjoy wordplay, you may want to turn off the tape.
Exactly. And the story of Toronto's sewer system? It's filled with pipe dreams, stinky situations, and even a few close shaves with disaster. From public health crises to engineering marvels, the sewers of Toronto have been through some real ups and downs. So grab your rubber boots and nose plugs because today we're diving into the untold story of Toronto's most unglamorous hero, its sewer system. I'm Grayson Miller.
And I'm Adam Weiser, the number one and number two of this podcast. This is Muddy York. In the late 19th century, Toronto found itself on the brink of a transformation, a city teetering between small town simplicity and the aspirations of a bustling metropolis. This period brought economic growth, a swell of new residents, and modern infrastructure. However, lurking just beneath the streets was an issue that few anticipated would become a defining force for the city: sewage. It's easy to dismiss Toronto's sewer system as a mundane necessity of urban life. But the city's relationship with waste management tells a deeper story, one that spans public health, social values, technological innovation, and inevitably, government action, or the lack thereof. Toronto's early infrastructure was hardly prepared for the wave of industry and residents that surged through its boundaries. As historian J.E. Middleton observed, Toronto was outgrowing its civil services as rapidly as a small boy outgrows his pantaloons. I don't actually know how quickly a small boy outgrows his pantaloons anymore. How many? You have a small son. How long did it take him to outgrow his first pair of pantaloons?
Pre- Pretty quickly.
Okay.
Pretty quickly, actually.
Planned pantaloon obsolescence. Most homes relied on backyard latrines or privy pits, simple pits dug into the earth, serving as crude waste collection points. Some of these pits drained into open ditches, but many were essentially stagnant, requiring periodic emptying, a task that often fell to the lowest paid workers. There really isn't any other way to say this. It was a crappy job. Waste would pile up, sending noxious smells wafting through the city. When talking about the history of Toronto, people don't often talk about how bad it smelled. But in fact, the name Muddy York didn't just come from wet dirt. It also came from other stuff that got mixed in with the dirt over time. Now, while we couldn't find a direct quote, a resource from the City of Toronto website states, while specific first-hand accounts describing the city's smell during that period are scarce, historical records indicate that the combination of open sewers, backyard privies, and industrial emissions contributed to an obscenely foul atmosphere. If you choose to attend a city council meeting, it might be something like that.
For the most part, sewage was left to spill into Toronto's rivers and creeks, from there into Lake Ontario. There was little awareness, or perhaps just little care, about the consequences of sending waste directly into the city's water sources. It was though the city hoped nature would discreetly carry away all reminders of human existence. Would you be surprised that it didn't work out so well? Toronto's residents were starting to awaken to the reality that their environment could have profound effects on their health, and perhaps, more intriguingly, on their moral standing. The miasma theory, which held that decaying matter and foul odors could spread disease, was deeply ingrained by thought leaders in the city. It wasn't merely a fear of germs. This was an era before bacteria was widely understood. Instead, Torontonians were worried that breathing in the city's stench-laden air could quite literally make them sick, tainting their bodies and souls alike. In a city where the church played a significant role in daily life, clean air and water became moral imperatives. For Toronto to truly thrive, its air needed to be pure and its water pristine. Enter the sanitary idea, a movement birthed from the foggy, coal-streaked streets of London and carried across the Atlantic by reformers who saw sanitation not merely as a matter of cleanliness, but of social duty. Reformers in Toronto began to push this idea, the notion that society's well-being relied on proper water and sewage systems. Clean water and effective sewage weren't just utilities, they were symbols of progress and virtue, a mark of a society willing to care for its own. Under this influence, Torontonians began to see their sewers not merely as hidden conduits, but as representations of civic pride and public welfare. And so, the citizens of Toronto turned their gaze to the City Toronto Council, urging them to act. The process of building a citywide sewer system was anything but straightforward. The mechanics of waste management were bogged down not only by engineering obstacles, but by political red tape. What a surprise. Each street without a sewer system required residents to rally together, petitioning the city to take action. If 2/3 of affected property owners supported a sewer extension, and if their properties collectively represented half of the assessed value, the city council could proceed. But without this public consensus, the council hesitated. It was one thing to ask the public for approval, another to ask for funding. In practice, this meant that the council's commitment to sanitation often ebbed and flowed with the city's economic conditions. And for residents, the cost of installing sewers was a bitter pill to swallow. With a significant portion of the financial burden falling on individual property owners, it was hardly surprising that support for sewer construction wavered.
Just let it be shown that refusing to build necessary infrastructure because of short-sighted stinginess is a long and distinguished Toronto tradition, and our modern leaders are just carrying that great tradition forward. Now, by 1877, Toronto's sanitation issues had become dire enough that City Council quietly but profoundly altered its approach. The city engineer's office was given unprecedented authority to approve sewer installations based on sanitary necessity alone. In that moment, the city engineer became one of the most powerful figures in Toronto's public health landscape. This unassuming bureaucrat now held the keys to the city's health, and in many ways, its future. No longer would sewer construction hinge solely on public opinion. For the first time, Toronto was making a concrete commitment to its own sanitation. However, even with the newfound influence of the city engineer, progress was painfully slow. Economic downturns in the 1870s tightened Toronto's purse strings, restricting the growth of its sewer system. The council, grappling with the city's escalating sanitation crisis, began to entertain a bold and ambitious solution: the construction of a massive trunk sewer system. Now, you might be wondering, what's a trunk sewer system? That was certainly my question the first time I read that term. Imagine it as the city's underground superhighway for waste, a sprawling network of colossal pipes designed to intercept sewage from smaller neighborhood sewers before it can reach the harbor or, worse, contaminate the city's drinking water. This wasn't just a simple extension of existing pipes. It was a revolutionary concept for Toronto at that time. The plan was to have this enormous conduit carry waste eastward to the Don River and then south, far away from the bustling harbor and the water sources the city relied upon. It was like giving the city a new set of arteries, ensuring that the lifeblood of urban living, clean water, remained untainted But here's where the plot thickens, and not just because people had meat that night. Each time the proposal for the trunk sewer system was brought before the public, it was met with stiff resistance. Voters struck it down repeatedly, their focus fixed firmly on the immediate costs rather than the long-term health benefits. To many Torontonians, the idea of investing a hefty sum of money into something that was literally going down the drain seemed, well, wasteful.
Imagine being a homeowner back then. You're already paying taxes, the economy isn't exactly booming, and now the city wants to embark on a costly underground project. The benefits sounded distant and abstract, while the hit to the pocketbook felt immediate and real. It was a classic case of penny-wise but pound-foolish thinking. The stalemate persisted for years. The council would advocate passionately for the trunk sewer system, emphasizing how it would revolutionize public health and modernize the city, yet time and time again, the public's apprehension about increased taxes and public debt overshadowed these arguments. The voters weren't necessarily against better sanitation, they just weren't convinced that it was worth the financial burden. In 1883, a new figure entered Toronto's sanitation scene, Dr. William Caniff, the city's first medical health officer. Caniff was a crusader for public health, driven by a mission to make Toronto cleaner, safer. He embarked on a door-to-door inspection system, meticulously documenting the state of Toronto's privy pits, drainage systems, and stagnant water pools. He collected data, hoping that the sheer weight of evidence might convince the public of the necessity for proper sewage systems. He even secured legal authority to recommend sewer installations on health grounds, lending further weight to his campaign. Yet despite Caniff's effort, the public resistance remained steadfast. Cleanliness may have been next to godliness, but Toronto citizens weren't yet prepared to foot the bill for it. Meanwhile, Toronto's lakefront was becoming an environmental and public health disaster. The currents near the shore, disrupted by small offshore islands, were too weak to carry away the waste pouring in from the city. Instead, the sewage settled, turning lake waters into fetid pools. A once pristine lake was fast becoming a cesspool, a situation that grew increasingly intolerable as city industrial output increased. Ships navigating Toronto's harbor were often forced to contend with thick, silty sludge, a grim reminder of the city's sanitation woes. Eventually, public health concerns converged with commercial interests as shipping delays and clogged channels made it clear that Toronto's infrastructure was standing in the way of economic growth.
As a result, Toronto remained stuck in a sanitary standstill, its growth hampered by the very waste it struggled to manage. It wasn't until the early 20th century, after countless typhoid outbreaks and mounting pressure from health officials like Dr. William Caniff, that public sentiment finally began to shift. The community started to grasp that the cost of inaction, measured in illness, lost productivity, and even lives, far outweighed the price tag of the proposed sewer system. In 1908, the tide finally turned. The public approved funding for the trunk sewer system, marking a pivotal moment in Toronto's journey towards modernity. When the system was completed in 1913, it wasn't just an engineering triumph, it was a monumental leap forward for public health and a testament to the city's willingness to invest in its future. So, the trunk sewer system wasn't just a network of pipes, it was the backbone of a new Toronto. It signified a collective understanding that sometimes the most significant progress happens beneath the surface, away from the public eye, but crucial to the well-being of all.
Yeah, it's really important to know that the completion of Toronto's trunk sewer system in 1913 was more than just a technical feat. It was a declaration that the city valued the unseen foundations of its growth. Yet, like any piece of infrastructure, it wasn't the final chapter, just the beginning of an ongoing narrative. As Toronto expanded, so did the demands of its underground lifelines. The city's planners and engineers faced a new challenge: how to adapt a system designed for a smaller, simpler Toronto to serve an ever-growing metropolis.
Today, Toronto's sewer system stretches over 11,000 kilometers, a sprawling, intricate web that courses beneath the city streets. In the older neighborhoods downtown, combined sewers, where household waste and rainwater travel together in a single pipe, still exist, a relic of an earlier era. This design, which made sense when Toronto was a fraction of its current size, now accounts for only 23% of the city's sewer network. In the newer suburbs, separate sewer systems direct household sewage to treatment plants, while stormwater flows through another set of pipes straight to rivers and the lake. This design may seem simple, but it's a carefully calculated solution to the challenges posed by urban growth, climate change, and aging infrastructure. However, even the most meticulously designed sewer systems are vulnerable to the whims of Mother Nature. When heavy rains fall over Toronto, the sewers strain to handle the surge of water. Some of you may remember, I think it was about 6 months ago, where they definitely struggled to handle the surge, and Union Station had a small lake, I believe it was about 6 inches deep. It's like trying to fill a bathtub with a fire hose. Overflow is inevitable. In these moments, Toronto's relief mechanisms kick in, with overflow tanks and storage ponds taking on as much water as they can. But in the older neighborhoods, where such infrastructure is sparse, excess water spills directly into local rivers and Lake Ontario, creating a public health issue wrapped in an environmental crisis. The Western Beaches Tunnel, completed in 2002 at a cost of $80 million, represents one of Toronto's latest efforts to address this issue. This marvel of modern engineering stretches from High Park to Ontario Place. Its cavernous, concrete shafts capable of holding 85 million liters of wastewater. During heavy rains, the tunnel acts as a temporary reservoir, holding back a mix of rainwater and sewage until it can be treated. Once inside, the sediment settles, bacteria are neutralized by UV treatment, and only then is the water released into Lake Ontario. It's an elegant solution, yet one that faces an ongoing battle against Toronto's unpredictable weather. The tunnel, like the rest of Toronto's sewer system, is constantly under threat from the unexpected. Fatbergs, massive congealed blobs of fat, oil, and grease, regularly clog pipes. If you're interested, you can go online and find all manner of photos and videos of fatbergs. We're not going to inflict that on you, but the internet was created for this type of thing. Now, these fatbergs form solid obstructions that require high-pressure hoses and vacuum trucks to remove. And it's not just fats and oils. Bill Shea, Toronto Water's Director of District Operations, recounts finding items like toy trucks and, on one particularly strange day, a collection of counterfeit cash that someone had desperately flushed in a panic. Then there are the invisible threats. Pharmaceuticals, paints, and chemicals flushed into the system bypass treatment facilities, ending up in Toronto's waterways. These pollutants persist in the environment, raising concerns about their impact on aquatic life and ultimately human health. As Toronto's water general manager Lou DiGeronimo often says, it's a connected system. Everything from what we drink to what we flush is part of the same cycle, reminding us that the hidden labyrinth beneath Toronto's streets is more than a mere utility. It's an ecosystem that requires our vigilance and respect.
Toronto's sewers, though advanced, are constantly tested by the harsh Canadian winters. As the ground freezes and thaws, the pipes shift, crack, and sometimes break altogether. Each winter, Toronto Water deals with roughly 1,600 water main breaks, sending crews scrambling to make repairs in sub-zero temperatures. PVC piping has helped reduce these breaks, its flexibility allowing to bend with the shifting earth. But even PVC has its limits, and the cold remains one of the city's greatest adversaries. Today's Toronto sewers are as much a part of its history as any monument, an enduring legacy of civic duty, public health, and innovation. So, Adam, remember when we started this episode, we were talking about the most underrated parts of a city, the things that worked quietly in the background, unnoticed until something goes wrong? Well, I think it's safe to say that Toronto's sewer system takes the crown.
It's like an invisible pillar of the city. Without it, the growth, health, and livability of the city that we enjoy today just wouldn't be there.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. So, guys, the next time you're walking through Toronto and admiring its skyline, streetcars, or parks, take a moment to think about the hidden world beneath your feet, the unsung hero that keeps it all possible. I'm Grayson Miller.
And I'm Adam Weiser. Thank you for listening to Muddy York.
All right, guys, that's it. Adam, could you tell us where they can find us?
Not offhand, because even though I've been doing this for over a year, I still don't have them memorized.
It's simple. You just gotta have like a little post-it note, put it on your computer. I mean, I guess I could do exactly the same thing. But what do you think?
Now, hold on a sec. Okay, ready to go?
Yeah.
If you want to email us, you can find us at muddy_york@outlook.com. You can find us on Twitter at Toronto_history, or you can find us on Facebook at Muddy York History, all one word. Thank you for listening. Also, in addition to sharing, please rate or leave reviews. I'm not an expert on algorithms, but I know that every little bit helps to promote the podcast, and we could really appreciate your help.